As a part of a Muslim community, I am terribly sorry for your loss.
See, that's the problem. I mean, you can be sorry to him. Why do you have to take the blame for it?
I was just about to say this. He doesn't have to apologize because. Hey guys, welcome back to Muslim Minds. Today we're going to react to Can Hindus and Muslims see eye to eye? It should be a spicy video.
They have destroyed that masjid, and that is a wrong thing. Yeah. But do you know how many temples in Kashmir were burnt? 350 temples.
Are we settling scores?
Exactly.
No.
Hindus and Muslims are like the Montagues and Capulets of India. We've been warring for centuries.
Growing up, I was taught to stay away from the other side. Can the agreeers please step forward?
I guess we can also chime in on this. So I am a Pakistani, and I was born and raised in the US, and I'm obviously a Muslim. I was not raised to stay away from the other side. I was not even kind of really told that they were a side. I just kind of happened to learn about Hindus and Indians at large as I was growing up, and never really saw kind of like a specific problem with them. But as I grew older, I came to understand that there are definitely issues between Hindus and Muslims within India, and then with the nations of Pakistan and India especially.
Yeah, I think they're filming this in India, so they're going to be mainly talking about the political stuff with Kashmir. I'm not very knowledgeable about that political climate, but yeah, my family's originally from India, but we grew up in America, so a lot of the things they might say we might not have exact references to in our own lives, but let's see what they say.
I was shocked too when he told me he's Indian. He doesn't look Indian.
All right.
It wasn't said so strongly. Nothing really. There was generally a non-appreciation of me hanging out with Hindu friends. So there was not a clear thing that don't hang out with Hindus, but discouragement. Where are you going? Hey, he's a Hindu. You don't even know how they would have coped. Why are you going to the birthday party or something? Whereas if I have a Muslim friend, he was somewhat more welcome.
So yeah, in my family, I think I have actually seen my parents neglect a lot of my Muslim friends, and very sternly, my mother specifically walk up to me and tell me that don't make Muslim friends. Or, whenever there was a Muslim friend's birthday party, she would tell me not to go there. So there was this very cold environment.
Like I would this lady is some kind of like Indian politician. She's some kind of figure. She looks familiar.
My mother not treating them very well, not sitting with them or trying to even initiate a discussion. It really needs to be stopped. You can't let your kids grow in such a venomous environment that it ultimately takes a toll on them. And when they grow up, they start, just hating the other community on them. And when they grow up, they start, just hating the other community to such an extent that they can't even engage in discussions with them.
Yeah.
I think that's a very important point. If you raise your kids to be so hateful of the other group, like you said, you won't even be able to talk to them.
You kind of dehumanize them in your head and vilify them. We saw that a lot in many historical things. When war happens, you basically dehumanize the other side. And that, if you put that in a kid when they're born, when they grow up, a lot of bad things will happen from that. But yeah, Islamically, it kind of makes sense where your parents will generally want you to hang around people of your own faith. So I see what these people are saying from that, but even as Muslims, we always have to respect every human, whatever faith or creed they follow. There's a hadith where a funeral procession of a Jew was passing by the Prophet Muhammad and his Sahabas, his companions, and the Prophet out of everyone, he stood up for the funeral procession because, I don't know word for word, but you have to respect everyone, especially someone who's passing by that's dying. He might be a Jew, he might be something else, anything else, but as a human, you respect them.
Can we have the disagreeers come forward?
My experience was quite the opposite. In my house, actually, my sister's best friend was Muslim, and she used to live in our colony, and for every Diwali, it's like she didn't have anywhere to go or anything to do. So she used to spend Diwali with us. So my family's been very accepting.
So for my parents, it was never a choice because most of my friends were Muslims only. So there was no choice for them to stop me somewhere. But yes, it was communicated to our parents, never marry a girl outside your...
What I really enjoy whenever someone from a different religion would come to the house, then the level of curiosity that my parents would have.
Absolutely.
And that's also something very, bad about our society. After 1,000 years of coexistence, there is still curiosity. How dumb are we? Like, you still don't know about the other person.
I've been married to a Muslim.
Yeah, just based on what they were saying, it's always fine to learn from other religions like what we're doing right now on this channel. If we are not even doing like any of our neighbors, they could be different religion, doesn't mean we're never going to talk to them. Like as Muslims, we have rights of our neighbors, supposed to respect them, whatever they're from. And anyone in our society is kind of a neighbor in a broad sense. So it's always good to learn about different people, where they come from, their family life, any issues they come from, because it'll help us grow as people. It's not just about, oh, you're not Muslim, we don't care. You're not this religion, we don't care about you. We're all human mankind at the end of the day. Thanks.
Muslim boy by my own will and choice, of course against my parents' will. They still don't speak to my husband at all. They have cordial relations with me, which I think I've over the time come to accept that it's okay. If they don't want to talk to him, it's their decision at the end of the day, and I need to respect it.
Someone I know has died because of this conflict.
I would say for me, not directly, but definitely I know my family members, some of them have died through overall tensions between the two sides.
We being Kashmiri Pandits are treated as a minority community in Jammu and Kashmir. And because of this religious extremism, my father was assassinated.
I know what he's saying is kind of very deep, but I would like to make a correction. I wouldn't see it as religious extremism, because Kashmir is primarily like a political settlement over the land of Kashmir, whether it's Pakistani or India. I mean, religion could play a role. I mean, it definitely is used to incite violence or to emotionally damage the other side, but it's not from a religious point of view. It's all political.
When I was at the age of 15 or 16, all the house was coordinated by militants, and he was taken from my place, and he was assassinated. Because of this religious conflict, certain innocents are being targeted, and if the extremism and conflicts will go on, such things will happen.
Dang, Rube got quiet.
It's on father. It's crazy.
I think a lot of us are just tongue-tied for now. But if I may, I think I just have had a lot of respect for you, like right now, because I think it takes a lot to be a first-hand victim of a crime and then still not develop that hatred and let that hatred get so much to you that you start blaming an entire community for it. Because at the end, you have to realize that an individual or few individuals belonging to that community were actually responsible for it and not the entire community. So I think if we actually had people like you who were so practical and understanding, we wouldn't be in this situation we are in today.
No, that's actually very true. I've spent a lot of time in Jammu and Kashmir. My father was in the army. We were posted there for a long time. I've seen a lot of terrorism and a lot of violence in front of me. We didn't go to school for many months because of that, so I've lost out big chunks of my childhood. Yeah. Initially, when you had introduced yourself and you said you were a Kashmiri Pandit, I was immediately filled with fear because I've had a lot of negativity from people who tend to harbor hate against people with literally just my surname. For, of course, things that have happened terrible in their lives. But to see somebody emerge from such a situation and then still come out the other side with the level of maturity that you're able to show right now. It's really incredible to see. Yeah.
What you have been through, given that despite that personal tragedy, you have managed to keep yourself just and fair. And I salute to you. And if it matters, I doubt it does. But as a part of a Muslim community, I am terribly sorry for your loss.
See, that's the problem. I mean, you can be sorry to him. Why do you have to take the blame for it?
I was just about to say this. He doesn't have to apologize because, I guess it's his way of expressing condolences in that sense. Because it's like someone saying, I'm sorry for your loss, but he's on behalf of the Muslim community. That guy, whoever killed his father is not a representative of the Muslim community. He's a representative of a political conflict.
I agree with what they were saying before. Just because someone is a Muslim or Christian or anything, and they end up doing a violent act that isn't actually in the religion itself, usually people, they demonize the whole religion for that, and then they have prejudice over the whole group of people. And that's how big genocides and massacres happen, just from that mindset. So if people were more like that guy, how his dad got killed, he is actually an amazing man for not having prejudice against others. Just like how in America or Western nations, they will vilify Muslims because the act of 0.00001% of Muslims doing bad acts, terrorist acts, then it'll all become on us. So if more people had the view of these guy and all these people, I know he's going to say something different, but I'm sure he has the same view, that you don't demonize or have prejudices towards people based on one extreme person that doesn't actually follow the religion properly.
Yeah, 99.9% of a population of people are condemning an act, then it makes no sense to say that population itself is guilty of such acts.
Exactly.
That is something that I don't understand. None of my business, not my problem. Some people did it. I am the representative for myself. That doesn't make me absolute in the sense to represent that entire culture. It's just a tiny facet.
It does.
No, actually, when you start being apologetic for the entire community is actually when you start giving the other side the chance to blame the entire community.
So Pallavi made a point. So she said that if everybody was like him, we wouldn't be here at all. But I want to just take to the other side, because to go what he has gone through, I believe the pain would be immense. And if that means that I lash out at society, at the perpetrators, at whoever or whatever was responsible, I believe that there is scope for understanding those kind of violent actions.
No, absolutely not. I so disagree with that point of view. We'd be living in an uncivilized, a lawless society if we actually start propagating thoughts like this.
Because if you don't go down to the root problem and try to solve that and just make way for everyone to act off emotions, then like she's saying, there'll be complete mayhem. Based off what that guy is saying, what if a whole group of Hindu Indians or Hindu Muslims felt a certain type of way from one tragedy that happened to a specific figure X amount of years ago, and then they just want to go on a killing spree?
Yeah, obviously you can't just act based on emotions. Obviously it's a hard time whenever anyone is losing people and lives, but you don't act out on that. Yeah. Just like you don't act out of anger in the Hadith, Prophet said, don't act out of anger, because you're going to end up regretting it and do something you wouldn't normally do. You don't act out on huge emotions like that. It's just going to make the society as a whole worse.
It's like a simple two wrongs don't make it right.
Yeah.
That, being violent is okay at a point. Your aggression, your being upset at the situation, the immense pain that you have felt, I'm sure people are going to understand. But saying that, it's justified for me to be violent.
I'm not saying it's justified. I'm not saying it's justified.
If I understand what he's trying to say is, if he goes out because his family was subjected to violence and he kills somebody, what he's saying actually that killing somebody is bad. That is not a justification for killing, but probably what he's saying is that when it comes to punishing him, the history which existed, so that should serve as not a defense against his crime, but a mitigating circumstance.
No, but then
this guy understands me so well.
I guess I would like to actually make a point on this whole understanding thing. I think one thing that would be important to understand is associating why the crime happened and understanding that it may not come from an ideology. So for example, if you see ISIS, one could understand, they live in a politically messed up state. they have no resources. There's a lot of extremism. People have been suffering political war and or just political instability for a long time with war and hardships, right? Poverty. So then it makes sense for why these groups may come about. And then seeing that act happen or carried out, like ISIS killing innocent people, then to the understanding that needs to happen here is people that might have a bad perception of Islam need, like, it's at a very elementary level, one should understand why they might have
understanding the context of the whole situation.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah.
But I think it's still bad. It shouldn't be justified at all.
No, it shouldn't be. Like, if you commit an act based off your limited knowledge, then it's still wrong.
Yeah.
Then
how's that going to change anything?
Exactly.
I think that's the middle ground.
How does that make him different from the people who assassinated his father? How does that make him different then?
See, what
because he also went ahead and shot those people. Those people shot his father. So where is the difference?
An answer to that. So we can justify by doing through individuals, but blaming a complete community is not justifying. So that is what Pallavi, and I also agree on that. Muslims and Hindus can bridge those gaps, because there are some negative energies which will pull you in your way. But we need to be tolerant. We need to be very much patient about the actions which we are doing.
The government has created more divide between Hindus and Muslims.
Oh, yeah.
Really? Are you guys not coming forward?
How can you not believe that if you know anything about
So I think, of course, you have reports after reports. In fact, there is a New York Times post that has clearly said, and I quote, that, the data of hate crime in India gets released based on who the hater is.
Yeah.
So when the government of India decides to release a data on hate crimes in India, and it excludes lynchings of minorities and only puts forward, certain facts where the majority is favored, crimes against majority, I think, of course, the government has a huge agenda to serve in pleasing the majority.
If there would have been a time angle to this prompt, that would have made it, much more simpler for all of us. Because I feel post-independence, all the governments in this country have actually done nothing good for the majority and for the minority on a very social sense. Economic indicators we are not counting in. So the governments have definitely done, that's why we are where we are right now.
Make no mistake, government since 1950s wouldn't have done anything. I agree with you. But 2014 onwards, we have a government who has an official policy to discriminate against Muslims. We have this kurbani, the sacrifice of the animal, and it takes place at our village. And we go to village and bring back the meat. From last 2 years, we are not bringing back the meat because we believe traveling with the meat is very dangerous. They'll stop you and they'll lynch you, saying that it's...
They will kill you. There are incidents of people, Muslims, because we eat meat, or they are stopped and they're killed. This is a very real problem.
This government has multiplied hate and hate crimes exponentially. It is not something which is just happening and they're apathetic about it. This is their policy. And these are, seasoned politicians making very absurd claims, that you should go to Pakistan and all. And you and I may think that
there are many politicians I've seen, like on the news in India, that just talk about how backwards Islam is, and even insulting the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it's like, whatever your personal ignorant beliefs are about Islam, projecting that on the media when you already have like these very simple-minded people who already have a bias against Islam is going to fuel their hatred for it.
Yeah, and there has, I don't know the exact reference, but there has been times in Indian schools, they won't allow the girls who wear hijab, like you'll get suspended or expelled if you wear a hijab. So that just shows the government and school system is targeting Muslims for their belief of being Muslim. Like, you can't do your basic obligation of wear hijab. You can't celebrate your holiday by bringing back meat and then you'll be killed. So if the country is not being proactive on this, then they are, like, directly or indirectly, supporting racism and prejudice against Muslims.
Yeah.
Fools and idiots. But what they are doing actually is they're normalizing it.
Yeah.
Unlike Congress, in which this politician has said it very right, Congress may be corrupt, I agree with you. But this government has overtaken the institution so completely the judiciary, the investigating agencies, the
The
media.
yeah.
So I think
I mean,
does
all
this,
of that was already,
No.
taken
Not so
over
much.
on different
I think that's
degrees
living in
Not so
complete
much.
denial. That's living in complete. Governments before this must have done this. What we are seeing now is a support towards
basically
all of
you
this.
were,
They support it blatantly. It's happening. Without any regret that they're violating
the problem is the
constitution,
degree
they're
here.
violating law. There's open support for it. When did we see previous governments supporting it? They at least had the knack and the shame to go ahead and oppose it, even on the face of it. Even though you know in your head, they must have in some way had a hand in this. But they never supported it openly. What we see now is open, blatant, shameless support, and it has led to such violent situation on the ground. Like he correctly said, people are being lynched for just carrying meat.
I don't think it's the government who did the lynchings. And the people who did the lynchings,
Well, it's not about who did the lynchings. It's does the government enable these kind of problems?
they have been arrested. And even our Prime Minister has said several times that has denounced those acts. So I don't think it's the government who's not doing, it's a law and order issue in UP. And it should be...
Well, that also is another point because the government can be hypocritical in what it says.
Yeah.
looked at as that. Secondly, I don't think the government is increasing the divide between Hindus and Muslims. I think the divide has always been there since the partition. Second of all, speaking to the Ram Mandir issue, there my stance is the Muslims have thousands of mosques all over the world, but Ram was born only at one place, right? So I personally believe that the Ram Mandir should have been there, and the Supreme Court has given Islamic society the right to build a mosque right beside. And like it would be like, why would we ever want to take Kaaba away from you? It's like that.
Well, it's not like Kaaba because it's in a completely different nation. And another point is if there is already a masjid built on top of a Hindu holy site, for Muslims, yeah, maybe that specific site isn't holy, but there is a community of people that have been going to the masjid to worship God there for God knows how long. And to have them agree to dismantle this building to allow a pagan building to be, constructed over there is, they would have to kind of agree to that. Whereas Muslims, we're not supposed to be advocates for building such things. We kind of keep it on our own. We can, practice our own faith, but when it comes to allowing our structure to be built, which is a house of God, to allow a house of worship to be there, if we have the legal right to oppose such a building and it can be opposed and it won't be built, then any logical Muslim would oppose such a building from being built.
Place is too special to us than it is to you, and just out of magnanimity I would like it would be magnanimous of the Muslims to just give that but I'm not really emotional about that issue. It could have gone either way and I would have been fine with it.
What you're saying is that the Muslims should have shown magnanimity is what the general view would have been, and the Supreme Court has gone by it. Just because they're minority, they're weak, they're less in number, let them come forward and show magnanimity. Na? Hum to majority and why should we show magnanimity? And let's not forget that a mosque did exist at that place that was demolished. There is proper videographic evidence to show that people were on top of the tomb and they demolished that mosque. And then you say,
so there was a masjid there already existing and it was destroyed. So I would see even more reason why they would say, no, now you're not going to build your temple on top of that. That's where a masjid was and you destroyed it. I don't know if it was legal or not, but the way she's making it sounds like it was illegally destroyed.
But to us, give the place to us because Ram was born here. And let me get your facts right. There has been an affidavit in the Supreme Court by the government itself stating that there is no evidence whatsoever. In fact, by the archaeological...
That was just about what I was going to say. How do they know? Because Hinduism is one of the oldest religions in the world. It could be just through tradition, but there's probably no concrete agreed upon consensus that this is where that Hindu figure was born. So that was another point I was going to make was how did they authenticate that's the site?
Society of India also, that there is no fact whatsoever to state and to confirm that Lord
She came ready.
Ram was actually born at that place.
Yeah,
so your basic foundation of why the judgment is good is flawed in itself.
So I just never wanted to go on this Mandir Masjid kind of a thing, but I just want to clarify here. Maybe anybody who has done on a masjid, they have destroyed that masjid, and that is a wrong thing. But do you know how many temples in Kashmir were burnt. 350 temples.
Are we settling scores?
Exactly. That doesn't justify. One wrong does not justify the other.
This is a wrong thing, wrong statement to say.
But you're
That
just
makes sense. Like, why would you even bring up that point if you believe it was wrong? We destroyed your temple, then that doesn't mean, okay, now let's go like he said, settling scores, and it would just birth this kind of mayhem like we were just talking about.
Yeah, it's not an answer like, oh, this is wrong, but don't you know our temples got burned too?
Yeah.
It's just like
that won't
adding
solve the
fuel
issue
to the fire.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
justifying it. No, so what?
That intolerance has been to Muslims only.
I was at work and the entire debate about CA and NRC was going on, and working in news means that's a very big discussion topic. If I was to ever voice an opinion, the immediate rebuttal, it's often said in jest, but that doesn't, of course, make it okay, is, oh, why are you bothered? You can just go back to Pakistan. Even though I have absolutely no affiliation, but my identity is then brought into question, my loyalty towards my country is brought into question by these things. It goes back all the way to like middle school as well.
Hindus and Muslims can coexist peacefully in India.
I think. What do you think?
Can Hindus and Muslims peacefully coexist? As Muslims, yes. Obviously, in history, some people bring up Islam has been violent. I'm not so knowledgeable about that, but I know in Islam itself, we peacefully coexist with Christians and Jews. If you go to Egypt, for example, which I visited, there's
Still Coptic Christians.
There's Christian communities everywhere. In the time of the Prophet ﷺ, so we can go back to the direct time, we are not allowed to disrespect the other faith, and they are allowed to have their own court systems. The other faiths are allowed to act upon their own laws in their faith in the Muslim community. So Muslims can peacefully coexist with anyone, I think.
And I think when it comes to the violent acts, I mean, this is not a point of me trying to say one is better than the other when it comes to this whole problem, but I mean, statistically speaking, there are more attacks on Muslims in India than you have vice versa. And that is also proven just by the mere fact of the population difference. There are far more Hindu Indians than there are Muslim Indians. So if, you know, the Indian government did something to kind of reduce the animosity in the media and in the government itself against Muslims, if they reduce that and kind of normalize relations with the Muslims, I think that will at least tremendously benefit both sides.
Really?
Oh my God.
What is wrong with you people? Of course.
Yeah.
You are not born bigot. You are turned into one by all these politicians and all the men who wants to keep their power to themselves and don't want to work. So they need things to divide people.
I mean, I think we've been living fairly peacefully, to be very honest. There have been some incidences. There's obviously been a spike, but look at us. I mean, we are having such a sound conversation, and has definitely been.
I think that there's some truth to what he's saying. Whenever incidents happen, obviously they will be loud. It will garner a lot of attention rather than the normal interactions. And there's so many people in India, so things are bound to happen as well.
Yeah, just like the typical thing about news, only the negative stuff gets reported. All the regular day-to-day stuff, it's just uninteresting. You never hear about it, but
I'm sure if you talk to most Hindus and Muslims living in India, they're going to be like this mentality.
yeah, just look at these people. They're not like acting. They seem very genuine. They're having a civil conversation. They can all be friends. And even going back to the beginning, a lot of them had friends and families that were of another faith, and their family was okay with it. So they have been peacefully coexisting. Obviously, the extreme people will ruin that perception because that negative news gets amplified.
Look at their biggest star, Shah Rukh Khan. He's a Muslim.
Been an increment in the number of inter-religious marriages, more Muslim scholars being part of public institutions. I'm a thorough optimist. I feel that the trajectory is definitely going uphill despite all the hiccups that we are facing at this point in time for political reasons.
No, I don't agree that it's going uphill. I think it's getting worse as of now. Since 2014, like Kabir said. But I think, yes, there's definitely a place to coexist because we have been doing that since even before independence, right?
Yeah, 1,000 years.
Yeah. we have coexisted for so long. Also, I think the situation on the ground, like we're all the privileged lot, so let's accept that. But even if you see very common people on the ground also, I don't think there is as much as divide as is being portrayed by the media. And the only reason the media is portraying it is because the government, to its own benefit, wants to push this narrative that there is a Hindu-Muslim divide, that Muslims have been the cause of your trouble. They were the one whose needs were always put forth, and despite being majority, you were always neglected. So now we are going to look after you. So I think the media is just running that narrative full throttle since 2014, and it's just becoming venomous. Like Kabir said, fascism gets to you very, very slowly.
See, I'm not very much comfortable when you are saying after 2014 it had happened. So I don't agree. I don't agree on that with you on that particular thing. Yeah, Muslims and Hindus, if born in India, can coexist very peacefully, and only we need to leave the extremism. So whatever, maybe that Hindu extremism or the Muslim extremism. Extremism is the main issue which should be left behind.
You better defend yourself.
I think, like you said, it's a very optimistic view. It's very idealistic. I want it to happen. I don't know if that'll happen. You're right, we have existed together for a very long time. We're barely existing together right now. When this is not a symbiotic relationship, we're not happy together. I personally blame it on the old guard. I think a lot of people have prejudice because of the experiences they've had, and that's trickling down to younger generations. Perhaps, not to make it sound extremely dark, but if that generations die out and conversations like these continue, there could be change. But again, keeping our privilege in mind, these conversations are just happening here. I am super afraid of having these conversations outside of these. I am afraid of backlash. I am afraid of being...
I will say she probably has also a very realistic view because her dad is in the military, so she knows how stuff can also go down.
Yeah. But I think what she's saying is not exactly like she disagrees, because she said it has happened. I think obviously just from maybe recent events over there and political stuff, it is really bad. But it didn't sound like she was exactly saying you can't peacefully coexist, because she is Muslim and we know as Muslims, like, if everything was ideal, we definitely can. But obviously, I'm not too knowledgeable on the stuff that happens on the ground over there politically. So.
Othered, I am afraid of being told that, oh, just go back to Pakistan where you belong then. You'll be comfortable there. So I don't know if it's happening outside of these sort of...
In every educated household,
education is very limited, though, again.
It's not that limited. Definitely, it's one of the points that we have to focus on.
I wanted to make the point out that why his incorrigible optimism is not misplaced. Things are bad right now, of course. And is there a fight between Muslims and Hindus which weren't there earlier? Say, Muslims came to India, say, 1000, right? AD. Were there wars before that?
Of course, yes.
Were there Muslims when there was Mahabharata? Was there discrimination before Muslims came? There was a caste system. There is nothing particular about any one particular community. So Hindus and Muslims are not that, unique pair who can never be together. Majority of us agree that they can live together. All of us want them to live together.
Absolutely.
Only difference would be how much. So I think we should be optimistic. I implore all of you. We certainly can live together.
Oh, you just put our foot here.
What?
We can coexist.
Going on what he said at the end, that's actually a great point. If it wasn't Muslims and it was another group, there would still be issues. So it's not just like, Hindus and Muslims is kind of the whole problem. If it was Hindus and Christians, it would probably be an issue. If it was Buddhists and something else completely different, there would be issues. Just like how in World War II there were issues, it wasn't religious.
Yep.
There's always extreme views of two teams or two viewpoints that end up corrupting everything.
Look at the U.S., how the growing divide between Republicans
and
even
Democrats. Liberals and whatever, liberals and conservatives. But even if, anything, it doesn't even have to be religious, it can be political, there will always be issues. So that guy made a great point, actually. Because before Hinduism, Hinduism discriminated itself with the caste system.
Yeah.
They were literally discriminatory on
by nature. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but this was actually a very amazing video. Like, these are some of the most well-spoken people I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like, it was crazy.
I agree.
And it was very informative. Obviously, we don't live over there, so we don't know too much about, well, maybe Rahab does. I'm not too knowledgeable on the political climate over there, but it was very an educational video, and I liked a lot of the points about how Hindus and Muslims can coexist and how everyone's just human at the end of the day. Even though the two different religions are pretty different in their beliefs, we can always come together and, you know, work on each other, make sure our society is peaceful, and just make sure the extremist stuff gets left out, like they mentioned.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, guys, if you guys like this video, please make sure to like and subscribe. That really helps us out and shows us that you guys enjoyed our video and want more content from us. Any feedback you guys have for us or from the video, please leave in the comments. We always make sure to reply to pretty much every comment, and we love seeing you guys interact in the comment section down below. And yeah, guys, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.